Now we commence our afternoon program by turning our attention to the Johor Singapore Special Economic Zone. This session will explore the JSSEZ as a mutually beneficial proposition for Malaysia and Singapore and the opportunities and challenges it presents. Joining us for this discussion are Professor Dr. Kian Ming, Board Member, Malaysian Industrial Development Authority, Mr. Natazha Haris, Chief Executive Officer of Invest Johor, and Mr. Rudyanto Azhar, Head of Economics and Investments, Iskandar Regional Development Authority. Moderating this session is Mr. Lee Heng Guie, Executive Director of the Socio-Economic Research Center, the Associated Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry of Malaysia. Now, just a reminder before we begin the session, you can send your questions over to the speakers via Slido. And to access Slido, you can scan the QR code behind your event tag. So please send over your questions via Slido so that we can make this an interactive session. Mr. Lee, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. After a heavy lunch, I hope that you can stay with us for 1 hour. It will be a very exciting hour because we have Kian Ming here, and we have two senior executives from the federal and state agency to share with us this panel discussion. I think for a start, it's a great honor for me to be a moderator for this amazing panel. I have my friends here, and we have a former lawmaker who speaks no fear, for those who follow his article, and I'm the one who every time look for that. Okay, we have our CEO from the Invest Johor, a federal, a state investment agency, and we have one head of economics, same profession like me, who like to share with you what the IRDA do in terms of the regional development. I think today we hope this panel will spark productive discussion and very open and frank exchange of view about SEZ. I think that's something we hope to achieve, and most importantly, to convince you all, not just a fund manager, or the foreign investor, domestic investor, that SEZ will realize its potential for domestic and foreign investor. For the first time as economists for the last 30 years, I believe Malaysia is on the upturn of the private investment cycle. I think it's not just the headline numbers, and I track very closely some of the actual data. Things are coming through. Most important is the follow-up through in terms of execution, which we will address that. And I think there's a lot of optimism about the SEZ. We heard what the PM say, we heard what the Menteri Besar say, and a lot of brokers written a lot of report about that. I believe there are still some skepticism about, whether the investment incentive, are they consistent? Are there still a lot of cumbersome rules and regulation? I'm coming from a Chinese chamber, and Johor Chinese Chamber also gives some feedback, and we also give feedback to the government on how best to implement the SEZ. And they also lack of skill, infrastructure. These are things that we talked this morning and also alluded by the Prime Minister. And for now, until we know the details, incentive coming out from the SEZ, which I sincerely hope, everything will be concluded by November when the two leaders meet up. And unfortunately, we don't have Rafizi today to share with us. I hope he's in a good shape. And last Friday, an important announcement coming out from the MOF2, which give you a very ultra attractive incentive and tax and non-tax incentive to jumpstart your special financial zone in the Port City. And for information, yesterday I went there. I pretend to be investor to want to set up a research center or family house. And I asked for what are the incentives, whether are they ready. I think they are still fine-tune the details, guidelines. Hopefully by early next year, we should have more information. But what I want to say from here is that after listening to all the incentive given to the special financial zone, a lot of people ask me, whether the coming budget, there will be more goodies for the SEZ. And today we heard from the Prime Minister who somewhat hinted to the Menteri Besar, don't ask for more. So I don't know, okay, whether this is just a lip service. I think now our panel discussion would like to attempt to address some of the foreign issues and questions. Will Johor Singapore SEZ make it this time? What make it different from the many of the past attempts? Have we learned from the experience? Have we learned from the mistake? And how to make it a success? And what are the critical factors? And most importantly, it's not about Singapore and Johor. How do you position SEZ as a regional hub? Be it your financial side. And most importantly, we want to know how would it impact on the Johor business landscape. That is important. It's not just for the big companies, big player. The one that matters most are the SME. You talk to SME. Will they benefit from data center or not? Are they be a wiring man or they will benefit from the trickle-down effect? That's important. And most important, and I think we hope all this will be answered by our panelists, esteemed panelists. I'm honored to have them. And maybe I start the first question to my good friend, Kian Ming. He asked me not to address him professor or doctor, just call him Kian Ming. I feel a bit relieved and honored. So, Kian Ming, I think I follow your proposal, 10 proposals that you wish the government can consider. And I think I want to know whether you think this SEZ can be a game changer or not to characterize the Johor second economic take-off. Your good friend, Rudyanto, mentioned that. And what's different this time? And what are the drivers to make it different? Yeah, Kian Ming?
Thanks. Thanks, Heng Guie. Thanks also to the organizers for inviting me to share the stage with Heng Guie, Natazha, and also Rudyanto. Really hope that we can spark off more conversation, especially at the detailed level, which perhaps our Prime Minister wasn't able to cover. And I'll respond to your questions by highlighting 3 reasons why I think that the JSSEZ will be a game changer, but not immediately, because this is a long-term project that will take, I think, a better part of a decade for us to see the fruits of the labor. But maybe in the short term, we can see within the next 2 to 3 years good momentum, so that more things can be put on the table for the other incentives and initiatives that can be added to the SEZ beyond what will be announced in December. So the 3 reasons why I think this would be a game changer and why it's different from before. Firstly, we all know this, US-China tensions will continue regardless of who becomes president of the United States. And from my position and vantage point as a board member of MIDA, we can see that the requests and interests coming in from all countries, whether it's from Europe, United States, China, Japan, Korea, to Malaysia is still continues to be very strong. And JSSEZ will be one of the key areas that they will be looking at, especially with better investment promotion activities. So that's one, US-China. Second, I think the relationship between Singapore and Malaysia has reached a stage whereby we actually no longer looking at each other as direct competitors, rather to be able to complement each other, including things like the special financial zone as well as family offices. So with regards to the investment that we want to attract, with regards to the easier movement of people and goods, it's something that I think both sides want to see each other succeed. Singapore wants to see how the JSSEZ can be used to decrease some of the cost pressures of doing business in Singapore that has increased significantly over the past 5 years, which wasn't there before. I know that MIDA as well as EDB is very keen to work with one another to do investment promotion activities once the details of the SEZ are announced. So that kind of G2G cooperation with the additional push from the Johor state agencies such as Invest Johor and also Johor Corp. This really shows that the kind of relationship is different from before. And the third reason why I'm very optimistic is because I think the infrastructure, both soft and physical infrastructure that we've seen grow in the Southern Johor ecosystem, and we'll see more of once the RTS is completed in 2026, is also different from before. And of course, people ask about high-speed rail. At this point in time, I don't think we need the high-speed rail to be actualized in order to make the JSSEZ a success. The RTS and perhaps some sort of LRT proposal in southern Johor would be sufficient. And that's sort of like the starting point of the physical infrastructure and also hopefully some of the soft infrastructure that will be catalyzed once the details are announced. So 3 reasons why I'm optimistic.
So do you think that we need a third bridge?
Beg your pardon?
The bridge.
I think there's probably some reason for that if we can alleviate some of the congestion in terms of movement of people and goods. But probably I would be more optimistic if, let's say, there could be a second RTS link on the Tuas side.
Okay.
Because that may be an important part that could connect the RTS first link together with a possible second link and an LRT that will connect different parts of southern Johor, including Iskandar Puteri, as well as Forest City.
Yeah, in fact, looking at the connectivity, I read some news talking about the complications surrounding the application process for this compulsory Singapore registered vehicle entry permit. They have some problem, and they are going to start effective October 1st. If we never get it sorted out, I think that will impact some of the connectivity. I think that's the thing that we always talk about Malaysia. Good in the paper, but when it comes to execution, that we had to work harder on that. Yeah? Agree or not, everyone? So I think, now I want to move on to our friend from Invest Johor, which is more related to what the PM talking about, Investment Malaysia Facilitation Center, Johor, the first one, located in the Forest City, kan? And I think that's important to streamline, and then you make sure that you are staffed with competent officer there to handle all the questions from A to Z. And from our feedback from China Chamber or even the business friend, Malaysia one-stop center, always full-stop center. No, I'm trying the truth because 2 years ago we presented a paper to the Prime Minister and we highlighted some of the concern and issue. I think Prime Minister acknowledged that and really wanted to beef up the effectiveness of the one-stop center. So the reason why I need to ask this question, because you're talking about federal government, you have the state, you have the local authority, then you have 6 council. 6 council, bukan satu tau. You are dealing with 6. And how do you coordinate and streamline and make sure this, what you call the Investment Malaysia Facilitation Center, is something that is very different and very effective?
Thank you, Heng Guie. Thank you, Bursa Malaysia, for bringing me here. Right, I'm FCJ. And then you rightly mentioned about, even the PMX also mentioned about the facilitation and ease of doing business. Under this special economic zone, what is different this time is we are tied by an agreement. So under the agreement, we have an obligation to fulfill. The ease of doing business is one of the things that we need to deliver. So it is not an option, it is an obligation. Hence why the IMFCJ is setting up. It'd be a tweak, it'd be a kind of a different from what we are having right now under MIDA. Under MIDA it is a center for you to fill in an agency, and the investor, they go to this agency under one roof. But for us at Johor, we saw this, it is an obligation, it is not an option, hence why we foresee that the setting up, the content of the IMFCJ is going to be a hybrid model where an agency from federal government, for example, MIDA, with another agency, IRDA, because it's regional planning, and a state agency, it can be Invest Johor, put together, become an entity, then we can help the investor's journey. Plus, that will be the front end of doing business, the back end process, the local authority that you rightly mentioned, involves 6 local authority. By nature, the local authority is very territorial. I mean, you can have the same act, but different interpretation. For example, early commencement work under the Road Drainage Building Act. Yeah, the ID. So basically, one local council, you can do early commencement, no fees, no penalty. But you go to another local authority, you can do early commencement work, but you need to pay some kind of a penalty. Same act, but different interpretation. It is not wrong because the word mentioned may. So this kind of thing is put us a challenge that how you're going to stream these 6 local authority. Now we have this idea of coming up every single local authority, the 6 PBT, to subscribe to the same work process. It is a work in progress, but I believe with the commitment of everyone, the back-end process of the 6 local authorities subscribing to the same work process, the front end, the hybrid model of this MIDA, IRDA, and Invest Johor under IMFC umbrella is going to be a more convenient, more seamless process of doing business. We have also an idea of setting up a dedicated account manager for each investor. So it's going to be a very comfortable, presentable. The investors, it's like you're going to a restaurant, you have a menu, you do selection, you don't have to go to the kitchen. You just wait for the food to arrive, the processors at the back end, then you just pay the bills. That's the whole idea of setting up this IMFC. I know it's not going to be easy. Looking at the 3 tier of government, federal, state and local authority, but I believe this is the best time for us to work this out together with the support from the federal government, the state government and local authority. And I believe we are in the midst of tweaking and finalizing that kind of a model. And pretty soon there's going to be an announcement how it's going to work. And then I do believe this is also the best time for the state government and the federal government to prove that we are as good as the rest of the world. Because of the speed and clarity that we are going to introduce, looking at our challenges of the 3-tier government, if we can get up to speed, what Singapore has did, then I think we are comparable to Singapore. So I think this is the best time. I'm very optimistic that we can pull this off together, provided everyone is on the same page, have the same level of commitment, and of course with the support from the federal government.
For your information, Encik Natazha, he has done a good job when he was at the Pulai local council, and he introduced a fast-track lane, right? That was an achievement under him. So I hope it can be measure. I hope there's a KPI. Maybe Ming want to add on.
Just to add on, I'm sure Rudyanto would add in on the IRDA part as well. I think from a nuts and bolts perspective, right, and I've got some experience on this count as a former member of parliament. The kind of one-stop center that Natazha was talking about, which was also highlighted in the joint statement by MTI Singapore and also the Ministry of Economy during the signing of the MOU in January 11 this year, requires there to be some sort of entity that is given the responsibility. In civil service speak in Malaysia, it is called punca kuasa, to be able to coordinate those activities. Ideally, it will be some sort of agency that is recognized by law in Malaysia, but those things take a long time to come to fruition. So in lieu of that, what would be good if, let's say, some sort of a special purpose vehicle that is established under MOF, that is recognized as the coordination body within the JSSEZ, is then able to do the coordination on both the front end and the back end. And that will be a relatively speedy way of doing this. And I'm sure, Heng Guie, you also know from your experience in dealing with some of these SPVs, they can be effective. For example, my HSR and also MRT Corp, both are actually SPVs, MOF incorporated companies set up for very specific purposes with certain punca kuasa.
These are things that you can do online e-services without having to be physically go to the center to submit your documentation. I think that's something we hope for, speed up. Now, maybe we move on to our friend from Encik Ludi. I think it's good for you to give us an update about what's the latest development of Iskandar Malaysia. I think people would like to know from the day one until now, and what would have changed in terms of the policy, and what are the sectors you are seeing in line with this emphasis of the Johor Singapore SEZ and also the Special Financial Zone, and what do you think over the next 10 years under the Johor Punya Master Plan, what are the projected flows of investment, the growth prospect? Yeah, Encik Nudi.
Thank you, Heng Guie. First of all, thank you, Bursa Malaysia, for inviting IRDA to be part of this esteemed panel. Now, many of us, were you in the next room before this morning, listening to Pak Daddy and Keith, CBRE and Knight Frank? I think you have seen the manifestation of the work done over the last 17, 18 years by IRDA. By IRDA as one of the agency. Previously we were under EPU and then Prime Minister's Office, and now we are under Ministry of Economy. Now, those are actually the manifestations of strategic plans that were, developed under our comprehensive development plan. We are now on the third development plan, CDP 3. Now, let me take you behind the scene. When we planned for this region, Iskandar Malaysia, we looked at 3 core pillars. Number 1 would be looking at attracting, developing the economic sectors that is suitable for the southern part of Johor. Yeah, we are not really looking at competing head-on with Penang, for example, but we are looking at what is relevant to southern Johor and Singapore. That is one. With those investments coming in, therefore, it gives us the opportunity to do the second thing, to actually develop the socio-economic, with the people here in an inclusive manner. That includes health, education, and also looking at all the people within this area, bringing up their socio-economic status. And thirdly, our mandate is actually to look into the environment. Yeah. So these are the 3 core pillars that we have been looking at, that they were actually now laying down the foundation for JSSEZ. I would say that we have done quite successful. Again, that is subjective lah. Now, since over the last 17 years or 18 years, we have actually surpassed our initial target. Our initial target was actually to amass 383 billion ringgit Malaysia by 2025. Guess what? By 2023, we have already achieved 400 plus billion over and above. And out of that 400 plus billion of committed investment, 70% actually realized. That you would be able to see if you drive around from Sedenak. You've seen that Tech Park, you would have seen the iTech Park, you've seen Iskandar Puteri, Medini, and if you go all the way to Pasir Gudang and all that, those are the evidence of that 70% of being realized, including EduCity, including all the residential areas and all that. Now, the areas that the sectors that we have been pushing, actually, there are 9 sectors, Heng Guie. 9 sectors, manufacturing, healthcare, tourism, education and all that. And guess what? We are not actually at the, openly promoting property development. That is not our core. Because what we believe that property developers, thank you everybody here, like Sunway, UEM and all that, IOI, they are here because they believe in what in our plan. They believe in what we have been saying that we wanted to deliver. Therefore, they come in. So they come in with their residential, with their mixed development, but most importantly, the industrial parks. We have seen a lot of industrial parks developed over the last 10 or 12 years. Out of 100 odd industrial parks, 30% actually managed and smart industrial parks, green industrial parks. So these are the foundation that we have laid for JSSEZ. So, and therefore for JSSEZ, we are actually building on the 9 sectors that we have, and plus a few more sectors. Those will be announced to us by the end of the year, under the agreement with Singapore.
So you mentioned about those industrial parks. You say that 70% they are smart, 30%. No, I think the question to you is that how many of these industrial parks are fully occupied? Because I done a study 2 years back and submitted to MIDA. A lot of the industrial park become a Jurassic Park. It's true. Those that we know is the Kulim High Tech Park and some of the things. Whole Malaysia. In fact, that was also conquered by FMM. So that's the thing that we always highlight to government. When you do the industrial park, you don't ask the buyer to buy just to speculate, not building any factory there. So it's important. It's important on that aspect. I mean, your data center, whatever. I think it's good that you bring up there are industrial park who are smart technology. Make sure it's all can be connect, infrastructure. That's important because the reason I need to bring up is that we've been pushing that industrial park all unoccupied. It just become not Jurassic, a zoo park. Okay. Okay, okay. Now we move on to another. Okay, come respond.
I will be scared to venture into this parks. But anyway, I've seen quite a number of familiar faces here from the parks themselves. They are actually, expanding even before each one of them reaches the full capacity, 60-70%. They are actually already looking to expand. Those because what? We have airports, we have three seaports, and therefore those industrial parks that are actually really doing well is well connected to these ports, as well as with the new connectivity of a highway. Probably, we're going to have expanded lanes plus highway plus potential highway on the west. So these are the new area that we can actually look out for.
Since you mentioned industrial parks, I actually wrote a pretty long essay in the Edge Weekly last week that was published on building world-class industrial parks in Malaysia, with JSSEZ being an important catalyst. And I think what we can do more of is, number one, showcase some of the world-class industrial parks that we do have, including some in Johor, in Nusa Jaya, in the Aisenai Industrial Park next to the airport. These are actually best in class that can compete with, I think, many industrial parks even in developed countries. But at the same time, number two, we also need to come up with some sort of standards and measurements to let people know what are the different categories or classifications, just like how we have for GBI for offices, for example. So this will allow people to invest more in the infrastructure of these industrial parks and be able to sell it at a higher price point to foreign investors. And I think the third part would be, trying to encourage as many of these parks as what Rudyanto said just now, to be self-managed. That means managed by the developer, which means that they have an incentive to make sure that it doesn't become Jurassic, or more importantly, the holes that are appearing in many of these industrial parks because of the heavy traffic gets repaired. They use good materials, make sure the landscaping is good, make sure that it's not prone to flooding. And with this, we'll be able to really catapult JSSEZ to the next level from an international perspective.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'd like to discuss about the challenges now. Now, we know that the most important challenge that we face is about skill, right? And you look at Johor, skilled labor force is about 26.6%. Semi-skilled is about 61.6%. And low skill about 11.7%. And we know if you want to attract all this high quality investment, people ask you, can you supply me the labor, the skill set? So how would we work on that, to upskill, reskilling? And how do we leverage on the complementary strength coming from Singapore side? I think we heard Liu Chin Tong talking about, if you can pay 1/3, 2/3, what they earn in Singapore, they come back. But now seeing ringgit is continue to strengthen, maybe go to 3. So how would we, from Johor side or national level side, address this issue? Or whether do you think there's a short-term measure is to give them the working pass permit, the foreign students who study in Malaysia, they graduated with good result, we can hire them immediately while waiting for us to mitigate the supply. Kian Ming, what do you think about this?
Maybe I start first. Since I'm in the education sector now,
yes,
wearing my tailor's hat. I think from a macro perspective, what we have to admit first of all, with regards to skills, talent, is that there's a shortage not just in Johor but also in Singapore. And the only way to grow this, or one of the ways to grow this, is to expand the skill set, taking them in from other parts of Malaysia and also internationally. So other parts of Malaysia, this would entail us growing the Johor ecosystem so that people in the Klang Valley and others who have graduated from universities and technical institutions from other parts of Malaysia look at Johor as an attractive place to come and work. And not just go and work in Johor, but be paid enough such that they won't be attracted to jump ship to Singapore anytime you get an increase in salary, in Sing dollar terms, right? Or even in ringgit terms, right? So that's one. You have to grow the ecosystem from by attracting people from other parts of Malaysia. Second thing is, we need to grow the foreign talent database, and this ties into EduCity, to be able to increase the number of not just foreign students who are coming to Malaysia, but the ability for Malaysian companies or even international companies, Singapore companies, to hire them fresh out of school. And this was a promise that was made by Prime Minister PMX in his 2024 budget speech. But it has not really been implemented or even starting to be implemented yet, which is his promise that foreign graduates of local universities, whether it's IPTA or IPTS, would be able to work without going through the normal conditions of the expat pass, EP1, EP2, EP3. So that is an example of why I think whenever we announce policies, whether it's in the budget or in the SEZ, the implementation agencies have to be identified. In this case, the Ministry of Higher Education as well as Immigration. And those kind of policies have to be implemented so that people can see whenever we talk about the lack of skills, we're actually doing something concrete about it. So that would be two things that I want to suggest.
Encik Rudy, you want to add on? Because I think when Menteri Besar talking about Development Training Council, which is work together with the federal side on addressing the shortage of skill.
True. So that Johor Talent Development Council, JTDC, actually looking at how we can work together with Singapore technical colleges, technical institutes. Because when we build the industries here, actually we are building together with what Singapore businesses would be. Because this is what Singapore Business Federation is also one of the reports talking about skills. So they are looking at how, if they come here, then they should be able to, contribute towards identifying the skill shortages, of which many of technical colleges in Singapore actually been pushing through. Skills is one, salary is another.
Salary, I think there's something is a big challenge, because if you look at the industry, SME, if you ask them to pay more than, now currently is about 2.5 to 3, and even talking about Rafizi progressive wage model, the trial one, so far about more than 1,000 employers apply, if I'm not mistaken, but those who are eligible is only less than few hundred. It's not really a big success, right? So voluntary also, I mean, a lot of people apply, but they will not meet up the criteria, so they don't get the incentive based on my feedback. Okay, never mind. Now, Encik Natazha,
I would like to add on a bit about the talent. I think you heard this many times from our Chief Minister. One of the challenges to retain the talent, the idea of a special economic zone is we want to stop the brain drain at Johor. So now what we are doing currently, we saw an influx of data center coming in before the other sector. So at the state level, we are setting up this ad hoc committee chaired by YBEXCO. So for data center, before they came in, do the actual submission to the local authority, we have this ad hoc committee. They need to answer basically four questions. Looking at covering the social aspect. Number one is how much job employment they are going to create, how much they are paying, salary scale and packages, the power usage and the water usage effectiveness. So we are trying to cover, and we are trying to come up with some kind of an attractive scheme for the locals. We already started to doing it now. before the signing of the agreement, before the other sector coming in. So these are the things that we are trying to increase, and then we're trying to attract more. The idea of having that, because this is the actual story, the Chief Minister asked one of the company setting up a business at Sedenak, they are paying that Johorian 4,000 ringgit. The same person, the same skill set, if he employed that person at Singapore, the company will going to pay 4,000 Sing dollar. You just imagine, just 5 kilometers away, 4,000 ringgit and 4,000 Sing dollar. 4,000 Sing dollar works around 13 or 14,000 ringgit. So the idea for us to engage the company, can you increase a bit more, 4,000 to 7,000 ringgit? Not as much as what Singapore is paying, but saving the hassle of waking up early. You have more time for yourself, you have more time for your family. I think the guy will take it, 4 or 7,000 ringgit. So these are the things that we're trying to working on at our own initiative, and we are hoping that it's going to work. All the on voluntary basis, of course, for now, because we don't have a regulation yet. So yeah, we are already starting to initiate.
Just to add, Heng Guie, I'm not sure whether you remember this program under Talent called the Returning Experts Permit, REP. That is something that has gone into a little bit of a hibernation. And if let's say that can be reactivated, because you're talking about skilled workers coming back, saying that you can be eligible for the 15% anywhere in the SEZ, not just in the special financial zone, and also increase that benefit to allow for expedited application for permanent residence for the spouse and the children. That is something that you would not be able to get if, let's say, you run away to Singapore, so to speak. Of course, Singapore, I think, is still quite attractive to talent. But if, let's say, that can be reintroduced and reinforced with the help of immigration, it will make JSSEZ, Southern Johor, a very attractive place for these higher skilled, critical workers in the critical sectors to come.
You're now in the board member of the MIDA. You push for that. From Chamber, I'll support you from behind. Definitely we can work together. I mean, these are things that we always raise at the Pemuda by our president. Rafizi chaired the meeting, always talking about talent. You have to speed up the working permit application process. I think now they are on fast track. But I think people need to track whether they are really on the fast track. I think the point that you mentioned about attractive salary, I think you need to set a KPI to measure that. I think there are people coming to MIDA, okay, I'm going to set up a factory, I'm going to generate about 1,000 skills. I'm asking MIDA, do you track, by the time the factory ready, commission, do they track the actual numbers of skilled workers generated? What is the average pay?
Yeah, they're supposed to provide reports to MIDA. In terms of the accuracy and all that, I think probably can be better monitored. But it is tracked.
They need to track. Then only you know whether you are giving too many things to the foreign investor, and what the net outcome to the country. That's a net benefit or not. Whether it's everything just take and take. So now the question is about take and take. Now people are coming to Johor data center, talking about water, electricity, land. Of course, we have a lot of land. We can. So I think the concern people had is about whether do we really do a planning, how much of a requirement, power requirement, the water, up and down we always like to quarrel with Singapore over food, over water. So it's important whether Johor has come. I know Johor has come out a guideline on data center, and at the federal level, Tengku Zafro also planning to come out something. So maybe you can enlighten us here on to what extent the guideline for the data center, and in going forward, you think government should think about nuclear power? There are a lot of data center like Google, like AWS. They are talking about their own initiative. I believe this will be incorporated in the 13 Malaysia plan going forward, because renewable energy may not be enough to support all the AI and data center.
We do realize that state government, with this introduction of a special economic zone, is going to be it's like we are opening up floodgates of development, and then the growth will be it's not going to be an organic growth. It's going to be some kind of a ramp up demand, spike of demand. Hence, it put some kind of a challenge and a pressure to our infrastructure. Also, in terms of managing waste management. So we have these challenges of electricity, water management, and waste management. So we go to the water management. In Malaysia, we have this raw water and treated water, different governance. Raw water is under state government, treated water is under federal government, and then are regulated by SPAN. Every state have their own water operator. You can increase the capacity of the treatment plant, provided you have enough yield. To get enough yield, you need to impound infrastructure. You need to build up dams, off-river storage. So that part is a grant from the federal government. Every 5 years, you apply through RMK, Rancangan Malaysia, or a rolling plan. It takes easily 24 months to build up. For a treatment plant, it have to come up. You have to put your business proposal to SPAN. SPAN okay, then PAP do the work, hand it back to the water operator. Then you can get the new treatment plant. So it needs to be harmony. And snap, you will have the treatment plant, the capacity, but you don't have the yield. So we are looking at all this. We have run a simulation at state level with the influx of development. What will be our projection? What will be our buffer left for the next development? So we are looking at all of this simulation. So hence we come up with a plan. We already proposed it to the federal government. All the planning for the next 10 years, we need to do it now. Then we will have extra for growth. Same goes with the electricity, but different with electricity and water. Water is something that you cannot create. It comes from the sky, at the mercy of the God. Semayang lah lebih sikit kan. But for electricity, something you can create either by RE or by coal. I purposely mentioned RE first because previous forum I mentioned coal. Oh, you cannot mention coal. You have to mention RE. Okay, RE. So it is something that you can produce based on demand, based on technology, but water is something that you cannot produce unless you go for desalination or you recycle back the water. So again, we have a strategy in place. It's a matter of we need to execute it together with the joint effort by the federal government and the private sector. We have again, I mentioned we have a simulation. What will be the demand? Again, for electricity, we have the juice. It's just that we need the infrastructure to build up. And depends on the location of the development, it takes time for develop the infrastructure. The juice is there, but you need the pylon, you need the cable, you need the right-of-way to lay all the infrastructure. So these are the things we have to take into account the development, and also knowing that this is an economic area between Johor and Singapore, and we have a very colorful history with Singapore. We still have an obligation to supply to the neighbor for the balance of 38 years. So we need to strike a balance because our obligation to supply and our own consumption. So afraid not, we have a strategy in place.
You better have it, no, because I takut blackout nanti. I mean, we have to make sure, not just at Johor, but national level. I think we have to plan nicely. It's important for us not to compromise on the supply of electricity for the traditional industry versus what we call the data center. I think
just to add on two short points. I think we should see this not just as challenges but also as opportunities. Yeah. So on the part of about water, I've been talking to SPAN and other people in the infrastructure ecosystem, and there are opportunities for us to look for new supply of water that is not processed to potable water grade, but for industrial water purposes, right? And the kind of cost will be lower as well, and the kind of processing that you have to do will not be so intensive. And that could be one way in which we can use that water to power data centers. The other one is regards to power, and this is where we can start to tap into new sources of battery storage. Because we can see a lot of investments in this area coming from China and other parts of the world, where we are reaching a stage where I think industrial battery storage will become viable in a couple of years' time. So that can also be used, and we can use that to perhaps grow even the manufacturing ecosystem for some of these battery, large battery device storage systems, and deploy them within the JSSEZ so that others can see that this is part and parcel, not just for our data centers, but maybe for industrial parks as well.
Now, hot from the oven, the special financial zone in the forest city. Yeah? Banyak incentive. And the question is, how would that spill over into the JSSEZ, and there are some commented, incentive alone are not enough. You must have the ecosystem. You must have the legal regulatory framework in place, safe to work, security, quality of life, and all the infrastructure. So I leave it to three of you who want to answer this question. Hop on Arwen. We don't have Rafizi here to counter you. You are free to express your view. Thank you.
I don't think I'm here to sort of like, preempt what Rafizi may or may not say. But I think it's a good start. Obviously, there will be people with different questions, and we still wait for the details from Bank Negara to be released. And I'm glad that the CEOs of the banks will be here later to get grilled on this. But I will say this, I would say given the fact that the incentives have been announced recently, and not just those incentives, but previously the parliamentary acts to make Forest City or Pulau Satu into a duty-free zone, it clearly shows that the government is willing to put in more incentives into SFZ as and when available. So I would say, if let's say from a financial institution perspective, which bank would dare not to put up a branch in the SFZ in Forest City after this? GLC banks and also others would want to have a play in it as well, right? So I think that's just a start. I think different kinds of shared services can be moved there, whether it's call centers or processing of credit papers and things like that,
yes,
to be able to grow that ecosystem. And I mean, just to put a speculative sort of like proposal out there, why not put in expedited customs clearance that's part and parcel of the SEZ to ease movement of goods across the border from Malaysia to Singapore, or the other way around, so that you can bring in more economic activities to make it worthwhile for the banks to be there. And all this is under the purview of MOF, customs. They would be able to facilitate a lot more activities, and that will also have some spillover effect on the SEZ as well.
I think CMB has a branch at the Forest City, duty-free shop, but okay, I think something will work out. Now, I'd like to take question from the Slido. Can I have the... Now we have about 15 minutes so that we be fair to the audience. We'll spend effort to key in the questions. I need to go through which are the ones sensitive. You're okay to answer sensitive, right?
That's why you invited me, right, to answer sensitive questions.
I don't know. They asked the sponsor. Now, the first question is about capital control. Will the existing capital control and restriction on bank accounts of foreigners be relaxed? Otherwise, ambitions of developing a financial center may be a challenge.
Okay. Again, answer speculatively. I think Bank Negara should be more open to relaxing some of these conditions as part and parcel of wanting to grow the SFZ in Forest City. And I think this is a good time to do so because the ringgit has strengthened.
Yeah.
There's less concern over this area. I think the Glics have also done their work in terms of complying with bringing back some of the foreign capital that has helped boost the ringgit and the local ecosystem. But at the same time, I will also say that it's not just about capital controls relaxation for the sake of relaxation. I think there should also be coordinated activities to say, look, we want to grow the VC and the PE ecosystem, and we want to make SFZ one of the areas where we want you to park some of your activities. And as a result, that would be an area where you can take in money in and out easier, right? Instead of, I think, many of these companies in the VC PE ecosystem, because of the announcement last year by Prime Minister that there will be capital gains tax on these kinds of transactions of buying and selling. A lot of them decide to find structures to move them to Singapore. Now they have an option, hopefully, to move it to the SFZ instead. Right? So I think these are some creative ways in which we can bring more economic activity into the SFZ using these kinds of structures.
If I may add to that, I mean, now that one of the economic sectors that we are pushing for economic zones is actually on the digital. And partly the big chunk of it would come from the startups. Startups would need those VCs, and as per what KL20 is. So with the potential flow into SFZ, it would actually give a better, catch for those family offices, especially to look into the opportunities within SEZ, whether it's startups or other investment.
Okay, there's another question.
Heng Guie, I'm not sure whether you know, there's a special MM2H category for SEZ and SFZ.
Yeah, correct.
And the requirements are a little bit lower.
Lower, yeah.
So that could be a way in which we can channel more economic activity, account openings and all that into the SEZ, SFZ. But of course, the danger and the opportunity here is to make sure that there's a good enough due diligence process such that we don't attract the capital that maybe are coming here to Malaysia to do activities that are not so healthy.
Correct.
We want to attract those businesses and entrepreneurs that want to come to invest in Malaysia, use Malaysia as a sort of like complementary gateway to Singapore in the SEZ, so that more of these capital can be deployed using the SFZ.
I think I agree with you. I think it's important you have the policy certainty, like what you talk about, real property gain tax. I mean, the last budget, they talked about non-listed share, right? So I think whether they will move on to like other asset classes. I think for people like Malaysians, you have wealth, you may consider to come back with this zero tax rate, but you think otherwise whether down the road, unless you are able to enhance the revenue, talking about whether GST coming into play, if not, there will be other form of tax they may consider, which may impede the investor to think about putting the money here.
Yeah, and on the unlisted, the capital gains on unlisted shares transactions, right? I think if somebody in Parliament were to ask a question in the upcoming budget session, you would find that the money you have collected is very, very little.
Small,
and the negative impact in terms of the signal you're sending to investors is much more negative.
Yes.
So it may be a good way to maybe sunset that whole
I
proposal.
agree. I think we always feedback to the Ministry of Finance on this. And there's another question about, I think it's something like when the MOF2 announced the special financial zone, right? People ask whether this is part of the Johor Singapore SEZ. It's not very clear, no? And they are thinking of whether there will be more investment diverted from non-porosity, go back to porosity. So this is something that we have to make clear.
No, it doesn't have to be. Heng Guie,
No,
it doesn't have to be part of the JSSEZ because it is a separate arrangement that's initiated by the Malaysian government. If you look at, I think what the priorities are for the JSSEZ, it will be the movement of people, it will be the movement of goods, and there will be some sort of tax incentive or income tax incentive for other kinds of activities that are maybe not sector specific, but more to do with skills. Right? Whereas SFZ is much more focused on the financial services sector, and it can actually coexist and complement whatever that's done on the JSSEZ part.
But your whole areas of this 3,500 square kilometer, it cover yang IM dengan Pengerang kan?
Yeah.
So is it considered final done type? I don't know.
I think likely it will cover all the 6 PPTs in southern Johor. I can say that on a speculative basis.
Okay. Okay, maybe on add on.
That's the proposal anyway, to include Pengerang and all that. But again, that half of the island 1 of Forest City is actually within.
But your Forest City ada 4 island down. Sekarang it's more Pulau 1, Pulau 2 belum develop, 3, 4.
Yeah.
So what's
approved actually the island 1 only, and the one that's already built.
Yes, I know.
That's it.
So are you saying that next time your Pulau 2, there could be another type of incentive tailored for special type
when that comes,
activity?
when that
maybe
comes, a new application.
Okay.
Government should focus on reviving Pulau 1 first.
Pulau 1, yes, I know, for special reason. Okay. Now we also look at. There's another question from the audience, which is quite interesting. Will there be a special which they mentioned that what you asked me about MM2H category for the SEZ and SFZ to attract people to reside and work here? Is this something? Oh, they have
already been announced. Yeah,
okay.
It's a much lower threshold in terms of the fixed deposit required. Yeah, and for different age groups, right? If you are older, the threshold is actually lower. Younger, the threshold is a bit higher, and it's more flexible compared to the silver category of the normal MM2H.
Let me see. These are all, most of them are really quick. Okay, I think there's one I want to emphasize about how this SEZ benefit the Johorian, Bangsa Johor, in particular the SME. This is something that I always get feedback from our chamber, saying that, how do you make sure that we will be part of the, beneficial? And some also commented, Singapore will take a free ride on this, on Johor, not vice versa.
Johor is home to almost 11% of Malaysia's SME. I think that's work around 90,000 SME, and most of them concentrated on service sector, F&B, cafe and restaurant, retail, grocery chains, motor vehicle repair and maintenance, kedai motor, repair kereta and repair that parts. And then SMEs plays a crucial role in Johor in terms of job employment and economic output. Now, this is the best opportunity for them to participate through the global supply chain. If they are able to have the 4 steps, I think they need 4 steps for them to participate. Number one, they need to have this partnership and collaboration with big firms and MNCs. Easier for them to access the supply chain and access to the new technology. Number one, collaboration and partnership. Number two, they need to embrace digitalization and innovation. For example, e-commerce, automating their production, and subscribe to data analytics in terms of enhancing their decision making. That's step number 2. Step number 3, I would say that upskilling and training in terms of their workforce development, so that they can venture into high technology sector. And number 4, I think they need to leverage on government grants. So they need to be informed, they need to keep informed, to take advantage of whatever the government is offering, to make sure that their operating cost is lower and they can make more profit out of it. So as long as they can subscribe to these 4 steps, I think they will be part of SEZ, that they can participate and become one of the players in the SEZ.
Yeah, Heng Guie, I think it's also important to highlight that the need for government agencies at the federal and the state level to work together with the business associations, whether it's FMM, or group trade and industry associations, FMM, ACCCIM, others that exist in the Johor ecosystem, so that you can know their challenges and also opportunities in specific sectors, whether it's the auto sector, whether it's the F&B sector, whether it's in the other kind of service sector. These are areas in which you have very specific needs, and if you don't know the pain points of the different sectors, you won't be able to address them in ways that you can align and get cooperation from not just the Malaysian government agencies, but also maybe on the Singapore side as well.
Because PMX mentioned a few times the word unprecedented, so I think this is the best unprecedented opportunity for SME to grab on. But again, it's up to them to embrace that digitalization, that facility, whatever that the government have to offer.
Okay. Now, before we close, I want each of you, I give you about 30 seconds to answer this question. If there's one thing that you want the government to improve, or even Johor government to improve, what would that be?
I start first.
Satu perkataan saja. Punch.
I have to.
Okay, tak apa.
Speed and clarity.
Speed and clarity. Ming?
Better coordination.
Yes. Encik Rudy, economist.
Okay, I would say follow through.
Okay. I think, obviously, let me conclude in short and sweet. I think the stars are all aligned for SEZ, Johor, even for Malaysia, yeah, whether you are second take off or whatever. But there are three key important factors that after I moderated the esteemed panelists. One is about good execution. Second, we have to draw on the complementary strength between Singapore and Johor, even between Malaysia and Singapore. And third is important. When I study all the success of the special zone in other countries, even like Shenzhen or other countries, it's a top leadership commitment. It's not just about meeting only, Meeting, we come up with good outcome and execution fast enough. That is important to carry through. And finally, I think, I hope all of you can have a good key takeaway from this panel discussion. I think it's more excited compared to morning session, I believe so. More productive, right? More open, frank, exchange of views. We are former lawmaker. We have, all these senior execution. Senior executive who run the Johor. And I would like to invite all of you to say thank you to our esteemed panelists.
Thank you to our esteemed panelists, and thank you, Mr. Lee, for moderating that candid session. Can I invite all the panelists to please step forward for a group photo? Thank you once again to our esteemed panelists.